Welcome to the best football show. I'm Brian Baldinger, and you can find me at Baldy NFL on Twitter, X, Threads, YouTube, NFL Network, all kinds of variety of places. You can find me on the free Odyssey app. Just download it, like it, subscribe it, tell all your friends about it. We're in the process right now of literally looking at the top 5 players in each position. All right, we have talked about quarterbacks, we've talked about receivers, we've talked about offensive tackles. Now I want to address the interior of the offensive line, guards and centers. Going to kind of do it in one big swoop because I think there could be 3 day one starting centers in this draft, which is a lot, and I think they could be had in the first round. Now it might go to the second round. I don't know that you stat people out there, help me out. I'm not ashamed. I don't know if we've ever seen 3 centers taken in the first round. But that's not a knock on anybody. I remember, 1980, Dwight Stevenson came out of Alabama and Ray Donaldson came out of Georgia. Dwight was a first-round pick and Hall of Fame player, and Ray was a second-round pick at the University of Georgia. Rome, Georgia is where he's from. He played 16 years in the NFL. Best offensive center I've ever saw. But he was a second-round pick that year. Always was compared to Dwight. Dwight got all the headlines, but Ray had a 16-year career, won a Super Bowl with the Dallas Cowboys. You might see something like that this year. You could see 3 centers taken in the first 2 rounds for sure. So let's just start. Let's just start with them. Starts with Jackson Powers Johnson out of the University of Oregon. A lot of great games. Oregon played Pac-12 championship game. A lot of big games against Washington, USC, a lot of good Pac-12 games this past year. Bo Nix, you got an elite running back there, Troy Franklin, wide receiver. There's a lot of studying of Oregon offense these last 2 years, especially since Bo Nix came. And I think almost every snap that Bo Nix took was from Jackson Powers Johnson. So the one thing that you like about him is he is a big body. He's 6'3" and change. He's over 325 pounds, and he moves well. So he's a guy that can, snap and pull and lead the gut plays, pull your lead guard and your center and run gut, get to the edge. He can come and work his way up, climb off defensive tackle up to linebackers. He shows all those kind of skills. He looks like he can just ping pong guys in the middle and keep the middle flat. I say this, it's not cliche, I just believe this, that your offensive line can only be as strong as your center. If your center is mediocre, average, poor, it's going to reflect in your offensive line and the overall play. You want to keep the interior flat. You want to be able to set short. You want your quarterback to be able to step up. You want your tackles to widen the pocket, okay? You want the front of the pocket led by your center to the depth of your guards to keep things flat. You want the run game to not get any leakage. Okay, all this stuff where there's penetration. Goal line plays. You don't want penetration in A-gaps, all right, that destroy short yards, goal line, quarterback sneaks, etc. I feel like Jackson Powers Johnson, with his size, provides a great deal of that. Now, he could go, I believe, as early as Pittsburgh at number 20. They lost Mason Cole. He's not coming back. They've got Nate Herbig on the roster. Nate Herbig has played center. He was a rotational player last year in Pittsburgh, played some guard. Came up in Philadelphia as a backup. His brother plays outside linebacker for the Steelers. They like Nate Herbig. He's in good shape. He's a tough guy. He can play the position. But, they started rebuilding the offensive line last year. Isaac Seumalo in free agency. Broderick Jones as an offensive tackle. They let some guys go. They're upgrading that group. They ran the ball better. You've got a new quarterback in Russell Wilson. He could benefit. Jackson Powers Johnson at 20 makes a ton of sense. But right behind him is the Miami Dolphins, where they lost Connor Williams last year to a major knee injury, not coming back. Aaron Brewer has been signed from Tennessee. I don't believe that's a strong position right now for Miami. They could be very interested. Dallas just lost Tyler Biadasz to Washington in free agency. I don't believe they have a suitable replacement. Those are 3 teams right in the middle of the first round that could be interested in Jackson Powers Johnson. But if not him, how about Graham Barton? Graham Barton at Duke. is an unbelievable prospect. Now, look, I went to Duke. All right, I'm duked up, but not because of that. Like, I got to know Graham at the OL Masterminds last year in Frisco, Texas, Duke Manoweather's thing. But when you look at all the upside, Graham Barton as a freshman came in, and he started the final 6 games of the season, 2021 at center. The last 2 years, he started at left tackle. And if you talk to him and you talk to teams that have interviewed Graham Barton, people talk about him as their left tackle, at guard, and at center. I believe he can be a Pro Bowl center. He ran a 4.84 40-yard dash. He ran a very good, shuttle time. He ran a great 10-yard dash at 1.68 at 6'5" and change and 311 pounds. Like, he could be a Pro Bowl guard. I think he'd be a Pro Bowl center. I think he'd be okay at tackle. I don't think it's going to be his position. The way that he moves and runs, I think he looks like he could be a Pro Bowl center. And those teams that I mentioned might be interested. The other guy that's interesting at center is Zack Fraser from West Virginia. I think my first game that I studied Zack Fraser, it might have been Penn State, I forget, backyard brawl, Penn State, West Virginia. I think they opened up the season this year. And he's knocking, Nittany Lions all over the field that day. And I texted a personnel director in the NFL, like literally 10 plays into watching him. And I go, could he start for your team at center? And he just sent back the old 100%, 100%, 100%. Zack Fraser probably is a second-round pick, I'm guessing. Middle of the second round. Makes a lot of sense. Zack Fraser's a good football player. He moves well. He's 315 pounds. He's got a big, wide body. He moves it. He's got good power in his hands, violent hands. I don't think Zack Fraser is going to get beyond pick 50 in this draft. Somewhere there in the middle of the second round, I feel, is a sweet spot for Zack Fraser. Could be the end of the first round. Could I don't know. Could San Francisco look to upgrade their offensive line, perhaps center? It looks like at the way they finished Super Bowl last year, that could be a position they could upgrade. He could go there. It's possible. You saw what Baltimore has done once they drafted Tyler Linderbaum 2 years ago. I mean, undersized center, Iowa. The pick has paid off. Like, they're a great offense. They're a great running football. Led the league in rushing. He's a big part of it. Your center is good. Your offensive line has a chance to be better. Now let's look at some interior guys. So one of the guys who started at left tackle the last 2 years at Washington was Troy Fano, number 55 there at Washington. Now, I've had guys look at him, and I've looked at him. I know he can play left tackle in the NFL. Because he's got really long arms on a body, size. He's not quite 6'4", which is short for tackle. But, I've heard people say Deion Dawkins couldn't play tackle. He's going to get 10 years in Buffalo before they ever think about moving on from him. He can play tackle, but to me, he looks like a guard. When he gets in the stance and he pops out of the stance, he looks like a guard, an explosive guard. He ran 5.13. He started 2 years at Washington not protecting, but I mean, him and Michael Penix and Dunze, like that offense, they won a lot of games. And you can watch him against a lot of good pass rushers, whether it was in the playoffs this year, against Texas, or national championship against Michigan. You can watch him against some really good players. Get out of his stance. He pops out of his stance, and he moves well. But he looks like a guard. And I think he's going to get drafted as an offensive guard. I think there's a team like Philadelphia that, obviously they lost a lot of depth in the offensive line. Jack Driscoll's gone. Suapeta's gone. Jason Kelsey retires. They drafted Tyler Steen last year from Alabama. Cam Jurgens goes from guard to center. It looks like they wouldn't mind drafting a guy like Fautano to plug him and play him at right guard and just keep the offensive line, keep the main thing, especially with Saquon back there and trying to get Jalen Hurts right. One guy that's a pure guard that I've watched at Kansas State is Cooper Beebe. I watched him against Byron Murphy from University of Texas. who might be the number one defensive tackle in this draft. And I thought he pitched a shutout on him. I thought he danced in front of him all day long. I thought it was a great test. He's 6'3" and change. He's 322 pounds. He's a wide body. He might play at 330, 335. I think he can play. I think he's got natural power. I think he can move bodies off the line of scrimmage. I think his feet, like pitter-patter just fine to be able to cover up, some of these monsters that are playing on the inside of these defensive lines now. In the league, we've just seen all of them get paid. Latest one, Christian Wilkins, but we've seen a bunch of these guys, Chris Jones and Jeffrey Simmons and Deron Payne and, all these guys that, Dexter Lawrence, these guys inside that are a handful. Like I can see Cooper Beebe being able to stay in there and take these guys on, all right, without a lot of help. Like he looks like he's got that ability. And then another guy that, caught my eye because I had a comp for him is at the University of Connecticut, Christian Haynes. And he's 6'2" and change. He's 317 pounds. He's got long arms. He runs very well. Now, he did not play particularly big when he went up against big teams like Tennessee. Tennessee had some good, talented defensive linemen. It looked like it gave him some trouble. But that Senior Bowl, he handled himself pretty well. That wasn't what people were saying about him down there. I remember a guy coming out of a smaller school like Connecticut 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, Nate Davis out of Charlotte, got drafted by Tennessee in the third round. He did not look like he belonged in the NFL his rookie year. Just didn't. He was just getting beat. A little bit like watching Christian Haynes, maybe against Tennessee or some bigger opponents. But then, you saw his power in the run game, and he got better to the point where Chicago gave him a big free agent contract last year. So I feel like Christian Haynes comp for me is a little bit like Nate Davis, kind of similar, kind of narrow frames, but big, 6'2" and change and 315, 17 pounds. Enough size, but he runs good. He's got good power. So I feel like Christian Haynes is a guy that we all should be paying attention to. He looks like probably a third-round pick. But Fano, it wouldn't surprise me if the Philadelphia Eagles took him with the 22nd pick. Now, the Eagles are in a great position because they have the 22nd pick. They have the 50th and the 53rd pick in the second round. They've got ammunition to move up to go after, let's say, Fuaga, possibly, and playing him at guard initially. I think that's a possibility. They have the possibility of going after Fautano. Maybe he's there at 22. Maybe they have to move up to get him if they like him. Those are some of the spots. Green Bay, is a team you have to look at the way that they're building. Some of the guys that aren't there, they lost John Runyon in the offensive line. They had an offensive tackle basically retire. Zach Tom. You look at some of the guys that they're playing at tackle. Okay, they've drafted guys pretty well at the lower rounds, but they've done pretty good. Rasheed Walker, left tackle last year, lower rounds, but has stood in there, played well. But that's my offensive line here. It's a good draft. We could see a lot of guys taken on day one. We could see a lot of guys taken on day two, up and down the line, whether it's interior or offensive tackles or projects or swing players or players that switch positions. I think we have really a very good variety of whatever it is that you're looking for. And there's a number of plug-and-play guys that can improve your offensive line. I don't think anything says that better than what Kansas City did 3 years ago when they lost a Super Bowl to Tampa and their offensive line came under scrutiny, and they went out and traded for Zeus, and they went out and drafted Creed Humphrey in the second round and Trey Smith in the sixth round. And Creed and Trey have basically played every snap 3 years in a row, and Patrick Mahomes wins another MVP and another Super Bowl. They fixed their offense line, and they played two rookies right away. If you draft the right guys, it's not a formula for disaster. If you get two rookies and you build your offensive line and you protect your quarterback and get your running game charged up, it can happen. In this draft, you have a number of guys at a number of positions that you could do that with. This has been another edition of the Best Football Show. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to talking to you real soon about another position group.